I'm back with another episode of Weather Eye. I'm meteorologist Ian Kowalski. It's been one wicked warm week here in western Colorado. We're seeing highs in the valleys right now in the 60s as of recording. And of course, today we are recording on the 26th. I had to check just to make sure on my phone. That's one of the most embarrassing things you can do when you go up on camera and you're so confident in either a stat or a different day of the year that you're about to give, and then you just miss entirely. I try not to. I try to be precise, but just better safe than sorry in this case. So what are we talking about this week? We are, of course, going to get to Colorado, where it's been incredibly warm, and the compounding amounts of how little precipitation we get. And then even when we do get it, we have these highs in the 60s that confines those snowfall levels all the way up at 10,000, 9,000 feet. It's really bad for snowpack. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit. But first, I think we're going to talk with our big national weather story for the week. And that is, of course, blizzards all across the eastern coast of the United States. If you've paid attention to the news much at all, I'm sure you've heard about it. And I think this visual really speaks for itself. You don't have to be too precise when you look at the screen here to see all the snow sweeping the east coast of the United States. What does that mean? It means a lot of places had shutdowns entirely. They didn't have people going to work. They had governors and mayors issuing shutdown orders where you're not allowed to be on the roads in your car. It certainly has been an incredibly hazardous time, and we do want to get in the details, kind of show you where it all started. So the first place we're going to go, we'll be going on over towards, I think with all the green, I think it'd be better off just not zooming in. But to tell you first where we're going to Stonington, Connecticut, where they saw snowfall that got all the way up to the mailboxes. Here's the details.
Mailbox high snow. That's another way to look at the 30 inches North Stonington got. It came down several inches per hour at times.
Couldn't even see out the windows because the snow was up covering them. When I took the dog out, I could hear trees crashing.
His dog Rocky showed off how much he loves the snow. Porter, the retired racing dog, does too, but his owner, not so much.
I grew up outside of Syracuse, New York, so it's reminiscent of my childhood, but that's why I left.
Even the plow trucks were getting stuck. A lot of wind. I mean, you couldn't see anything. Yeah. It was better off inside, so that's where I stayed.
She's shoveling out the path for a propane delivery so she doesn't lose heat. Meanwhile, some of her neighbors lost power.
At the height of the storm, we had 410 people without power, multiple roads blocked, snow plows getting stuck. But everybody worked as a seamless team, and were able to still respond and render aid as needed.
The first selectman says he decided to close town hall today so that everybody could take care of their own properties, not struggle to get in through the snow. But now the struggle is paying for all this snow removal because these storms, they keep coming on holidays and weekends, lasting for long durations. And so much of this white stuff is now putting cities and towns in the red.
Obviously, us, like everybody else, is way over on salt and sanding and plowing. But we'll deal with that. I mean, it's something when you do your budget, you never know.
They're hoping to duck any further storms while understanding this was not the end of the world.
The heavy lifting's done, so now we just get to enjoy this beautiful winter wonderland. So quiet, no cars, other than the odd TV reporters lingering. It's a nice day.
And one day closer to the coming spring in North Stonington. Kent Pierce, News 8.
Spring is probably hard to think about all on the East Coast, but here in western Colorado, like we talked about, it's on our minds already a month ahead of time when we're, again, seeing temperatures that we should be seeing in the end of March. Am I saying all this just to get us jealous? A little bit. But we want to take another look at the East Coast here too, because we've talked about in there specifically problems with budget and with able to get the resources that are needed. You can't really prepare, get that off the screen, can't really prepare for a historic snowstorm. Even on the East Coast where they're more used to seeing it, and places like all the way to New York, Connecticut, further up towards Maine, those places you can't quite get that level of preparation. It's like here in western Colorado when you see, say, an avalanche warning being issued. You can't prepare for that ahead of time. All you can do is really respond to it. But what happens when you get the most amount of snow that you've ever seen, when we're actually setting those records? Because certainly this is an incredibly historic event over towards Connecticut. But what happens when we're making actual history? We're going to take a look at Providence, Rhode Island to show you new records.
Hello, Providence, the capital city where determination is on display, whether it's the wind or the employees at work.
I said, oh my God, someone's gonna get stuck. So I slept over, take care of the front way so people have a nice, safe area to go through, you know?
And stuck they are. We can only travel on foot. But we didn't have to go far to find this, a plow truck trapped. This is near India Point Park, where 195 remains quiet, aside from the plows, of course, or the police escorts. And then there's this, a do-it-yourself jump. Plenty of snow to work with, too.
We walked, because our house is up there.
As generations take in a historic blizzard.
Snow's really fun and we're sledding, and it's way faster than normal because it's usually not so thick.
Happy to be back with you after the break. So we saw on that package there, and I know I mentioned records, so I want to give you the numbers right here. Well, you got me on full screen here. So our numbers that we saw in Rhode Island earlier on for those records, let's take a look at them here. Got them written down. So on the 22nd and the 23rd, they got 37.9 inches of snowfall in 24 hours. That is insane. That is pretty much 3 feet of snow, a little bit over. And when you compare that towards his previous record, here's what it was. Okay, you want to guess? All right. Here it is, 28.6. That's almost a 10-degree swing between what the previous record of snowfall was in Providence compared to what they actually got in that blizzard. And you might have already started to read what I have pulled up on screen now. We're going to do a little comparison here between what they're seeing on the East Coast and what we're seeing here in Colorado. So while you're seeing record snowfall far away from us, here on the western slope and on the Front Range too, we are still unfortunately seeing record low snowfall amounts. How much so? Well, congratulations. We've finally gone up. We're now at 64% of median. What does that mean? It means compared to this time of year to the day, we are at 64% of where we are at normal. Keep in mind, before we had that, last week, we had this couple rounds of snowfall. If you remember that snow squall that moved through the Grand Valley, that was last week. That barely helped us at all. It only moved us up, I think, around 3 percentage points, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. So that tells you what we're seeing, which is that we're getting that snowfall occasionally, but then we're just warming right back up. And we'll take a look at how warm we're going to be later on here in a little bit. So let's look at snowpack here. Again, we're at that 64% of median. You can see it on the screen here. And that's as of today, the 26th. And all these zones right here, you can look at the individual watersheds in these orange zones here, around 50% typically. What's the big one that we depend on here in the western slope in Grand Junction? It's the Colorado headwaters, the Colorado River itself. Headwaters, effectively, what these zones actually mean is where the snow is up in the mountains, when it melts, where does it run down to? Colorado headwaters run down to the Colorado River. No surprise there. Let's see today. I haven't checked this before I looked at the number, but okay. Hey, that's an improvement. So what this little chart means, you don't need to know it word for word, bar for bar. But effectively, this red zone at the bottom here, that is the low average, right? On a year where we're dry, what's that look like? The black zone here is this year. And of course, we've had record lows, but now, hey, we're back on track. We're not quite at records anymore. So 64%, unfortunately, still is not going to be a lot. Here in Colorado, in the western slope in the Colorado River, unfortunately, still at record low. A lot of those improvements have been towards the central mountains and over towards the high country, not quite areas that are contributing the biggest to the Colorado River. A lot of that is up towards the Park Range where they've seen some more regular snowfall. I'm sure if you've seen satellite radar regularly and if you've paid attention to the forecast just a little bit, you've probably seen that for yourself. And are we getting help? Are we going to cool down? I don't think so. I usually like to use Grand Junction as a test case for the western slope. I know it isn't quite the highest. It's not where you're regularly seeing all that snowfall. But generally speaking, at least in my time here, I found that the general direction the Grand Junction is heading in is pretty typical of what the western slope is seeing as a whole. And it's also where we by far record the most data because of the airport here. So you get a lot more accurate numbers and you actually get things like snowfall being recorded regularly. So I want to show you this right here. It's a great resource by the National Weather Service. It's just a chart of all the days. You don't need to see the numbers precisely here. I know they're probably very hard to see on the screen. So I'm just going to tell you simply that we've seen those 60s and upper 50s over the past few days. You've felt them for yourself if you've been outside at all. Those aren't going away. In fact, the records are in the upper 60s and low 70s for this time of year, in the last week of February going into the start of March. We are getting very, very close to that. In fact, I'm recording this on the 26th, so I'll plant my flag right now. I think in the first week of March, it's very likely that we get within a degree or two of either reaching or breaking daytime high records here in Grand Junction. So that just paints the picture in terms of the warmth that we've been seeing. So I've got one more thing to make you jealous here. We're going to go to a package in New York where they're actually seeing, believe it or not, a boost in their snow resorts. Very different from here in Western Colorado. So I want to show you this one more time and kind of that positive, I suppose, economic effects of that East Coast snow.
I'm Jim Vassell at Mountain Creek Resort in Sussex County, New Jersey. And over the last few winters, real snow has been a little bit harder to come by than usual. But after a recent blizzard, snowboarders and skiers here on this mountain are feeling rejuvenated.
The snow hasn't been any better than this all year.
If this winter left any place better than it found it, it's mountains like this.
The fresh snow is like surfing on a wave.
Fresh off of a blizzard to start the week and a nice little coating for good measure, Mountain Creek Resort in Sussex County is seeing some of the best conditions in years.
This has been a historical season.
Resort officials say they've seen a 30% increase in attendance this winter.
We're going to be skiing well into the spring.
Big snowfalls dating back to January mean there's a bigger base of snow on the mountain, which means folks here are in for a longer season. And a longer season means more smiles coming down the slopes.
One of those seasons that puts a smile on your face, you know?
Last year, you couldn't go down a side hill without catching ice or going in dirt. This year, all the trees have been beautiful, nice and white.
There's a lot of fresh snow, so it made coming down the slope a little easier for us. It makes the stopping a little easier for me.
Leo and Esmira came from Forest Hills, Queens. For Esmira, it's her first time on the slopes.
It's pretty good, not bad, can't complain. I figured with all the snow from the snowstorm, we'll try some skiing this weekend.
On this day, they're leaving shovels behind and trading them in for skis.
We shoveled so much snow trying to get our cars out of the lot, so we're like, might as well have some fun with it.
In Sussex County, New Jersey, I'm Jim Vassell.
All right, there you go. I know before we were like, oh, we saw that snow. I would love to have that here. Now I am definitely jealous. I wish the snow resorts had a little bit better luck this year, but if you tried to ski at all, you felt it for yourself. A lot of snow slopes are still closed, unfortunately. And also, I know I said New York. It's actually New Jersey. To me, personally, I haven't been to the East Coast, at least that portion of the East Coast, the kind of north-central portion. So, can't blame me. So sorry to any New Jersey, New York viewers, or at least people who have come there and probably retired here. So what's coming for Colorado and what active weather is going around the United States? Let's take a look at that right now. We already talked about all this warmth, and dryness has been a big factor in our forecast too. Particularly on the Front Range, it's been really bad because they get those downslope winds of the Rockies. And that means when you combine that with dry air and strong gusts, that's when you get those red flag warnings and those fire concerns. We've seen a couple fires break out on the Front Range thus far, and I don't think we're seeing too much change until we get later on into next week. We'll be teasing that here in a little bit. So here's where we're looking at right now. And I think this shows a really good illustration, actually, of what I was talking about earlier. There actually is a little pocket of moisture that's built up here in the central portion of the Rockies right here. Again, most of that's affecting over towards along I-70 and up towards north near the Park Range, a little bit of Rocky Mountain National Park. Those are the areas that have seen that snowfall. And so for those areas, that's where we're kind of seeing those snowpack levels actually start to go up. It's why we're seeing our averages go up, which is, of course, good. But we need spread all the way down here towards the San Juans and towards the southern portion of our Colorado Rockies. So it can't just be one place, because if you get all that water up towards the north, it's going to help those rivers, but it's not going to help the ones all the way down towards the south, especially the Colorado River. It really needs some help right now. If you've gone through walks along the Colorado River Trail, I run down there pretty frequently. Some of you might have seen me yourself. You know how low it is, and it has kind of stayed that way for a while now. Even when you see those rounds of rain and snow come, it hasn't helped that much. You can see all the gravel towards the edges of the river. So here's our moisture. Again, pretty dry in the west portion of the United States, but on the East Coast, you're seeing a little bit of wetter water head towards the east. Hopefully, as we get into the next couple months, we're going to shift towards INSO neutral and then El Nino. That's what we're looking at in the long-term forecast by the time we get to the summer. Back to El Nino. That would be pretty good for moisture here in Colorado. But as for now, we're stuck dry. And on the East Coast here, that's all that moisture you're seeing. Some of that, of course, has contributed to the snow that we've seen previously, but there's also still some thunderstorm warnings going on in the south right now that we'll take a look at here in a few moments. So let's move on over towards our next slide. Here it is. Oh, I didn't animate the radar. There you go. Sometimes you forget you hit your buttons. Here's our Storm Prediction Center outlook for the day in this enhanced zone here. That's the yellow. That's where you're expecting your greatest amount of thunderstorms and active weather as we move into the next 24 hours. Just to tell you ahead of time, the SPC outlook as we move into tomorrow, not quite so crazy. I know it will have already happened by the time you're watching this, but I think it's fun to break down because it shows you what's going on across the United States. And basically all these storms are going to start to move down here, but nowhere near as severe. It moves all the way down to Florida. Right now, Alabama, Mississippi, bit of Louisiana there too, a little bit of Arkansas. That's where you're seeing the majority of that activity. And it's hail and thunderstorms. That's what we're looking at for the most part. Large hail. You know, that's generally speaking, what's about the size of a golf ball. That's when you start to call it large. Kind of in that ballpark. Depends on what office, of course. Fun fact, National Weather Service offices can sometimes set their own parameters. What's large in the south might not necessarily be over here towards the western portion of the United States. But point is, seeing a lot of hail down towards the south. So let's take a look here at our satellite radar. What is going on as we are talking here on the show? We're seeing just one severe thunderstorm warning, actually. Oh, nope, more popped up over towards our east. It's moving on over towards the east, a little bit north of Birmingham, over towards Anniston. It's that orange zone right here. I know it's a little hard to see with the colors right here, but you can see the very stereotypical little isolated convective cell popping up. It's that really tiny one. We kind of have that tail coming off the back of it. It's what you really expect to see when you see these massive hailers, as you call them. Big hail producing, very strong, very high up in the air storms. It's an important part of hail, actually. The height of the cloud is very important because you see that ice cycled around up in the upper air, and the more it can cycle around and the higher up it can get, that means it can freeze a little bit more before it gets popped out of the cloud. Unfortunately, typically landing on places like your roof in your car. So it's going down over towards right here, towards Birmingham, Alabama, and then over towards the west. We've already seen some more severe warnings pop up briefly, seeing a lot of lightning associated with these two. But fortunately, it's a bit moisture down towards the south, so fire concerns are not quite what they are over here in the west portion of the United States. And then you do see this line of convection over here on our east as you see a front heading over towards the coast, moving over towards South Carolina, up towards Florence, and then moving onto the east coast of North Carolina. So our sports guy, Jackson, I'm sure right now, his house, he's from North Carolina. So I imagine his parents are having a great time, and he's probably going to send me some pictures or something later. So that's our active weather as we record the show. And that is really the end of it. But we also have, of course, over towards this western portion in Arkansas, still seeing those isolated cells pop up. Line of convection here. You can see this is the origin point. It's where it first appears and then moves all the way over towards the east. Usually on the west portion of those storms, you get those dry lines. That dry air runs into the more moisture air, and that just puts that moisture up, and that allows more storms to form. So there's a look at our satellite and radar and a little brief explanation of why you see hail in the south. And again, I want to show this hail monitor one more time, just to kind of give you a better idea of the kind of different tools I can use as like a meteorologist, because sometimes, you know, you don't want to try to pick out those individual cells, even though I know what to look for. Sometimes it's easier to just change your settings on your satellite and your radar, and you can see there, that pink zone, there's probably hail in there. Pretty good sized hail too. So here's your little demonstration. Let's look at our upper level flow as we start to transition towards our forecast for Colorado and the region, the west portion of the United States. What is happening? High pressure. That's what we're talking about. We've been talking about it for a long time now. Causes subsidence. There's your fun meteorology word for the day. It just means that the air sinks. And as that air sinks, it gets compressed a little bit more. And compressed air bounces off each other a lot more. That's what causes heat. And, of course, the stronger the high pressure, the warmer you get. And this guy right here is getting us into the 60s here in Grand Junction and even getting close towards the 70s as we get into early next week. Again, we talked about it. It would be close to record tying and breaking territory. So I'll be keeping a close eye on that in my forecast. So let's watch it just kind of hover. You can see even as we get to Friday and over the weekend, it's just moving a little bit. But then you see that line between the blue and the orange flattens out a little bit more. What's that mean? It's going to open us up towards some precipitation as we get, especially towards the middle of next week. You see this really deep low coming off the Pacific. And what that is going to mean for you is some actual real rainfall chances. But it's not going to be enough to cool us. That's a very important part of the forecast, is that while we are going to see that moisture start to return a little bit more, at the exact same time, it's going to be too warm. So it's going to keep those snowfall levels confined towards the mountains is what we're seeing right now in our forecast. So let's take a look at our futurecast moving into the next few days. Look at that. Our model has us getting into those mid to even low 60s. This is 6 p.m. on Friday tomorrow. We'll see if it's 60 degrees then, but I certainly think that's pretty realistic. So it's been great outside. I think as you get out on the weekend overall, it's going to be very easy to just go outside and have a good time. But there's something interesting popping up. You'll see this rain here. I take a little bit of issue with what our model is trying to do here as we get towards Saturday night. You can see that's right over Grand Junction. Right now, what I'm thinking, and this is as of recording, I could end up changing my forecast as we get a little bit closer. I think it's going to be a little bit dry in the valleys. I think our dew points are going to remain a bit low for us to get a lot of significant rainfall, or really, if I'm being honest, any at all. So I wouldn't get our hopes up too much. I think it'd be mostly confined towards elevation on the Grand Mesa, and also seeing some good data that I'm seeing up here towards Garfield County, over towards Ballant Mesa, Glenwood Springs, and along the Rowan Plateau, a little bit further north. So to keep that in mind, I think this is a little bit aggressive, but it's something to be worth thinking about. And I'm including Sunday in that too. I'm really not expecting a big valley event right now, but we are so warm when you get to those upper elevations, say along the Uncompahgre or over towards the West Elks or further down south, a little bit kind of north tip of the San Juans down here. That's where you could see some convection. Certainly over towards Aspen and Gunnison, I think you have a lot more to talk about as we move into the weekend. And then as we get to that moisture that I actually think is like going to be more important towards us as we get towards Monday into Tuesday, again, kind of focused over towards our north. But once you get a little bit further on into the week, that's when you actually see that precipitation get to, here into the valleys. I'm thinking around Tuesday. We just sort of right there, like kind of Monday, Tuesday zone overnight. That's where we're looking at that rain starting to pop up here in the valleys. And then again, once you hit Thursday, that's actually when I think we're going to see the biggest event. So here's a bigger look at that on our futurecast. It's coming over from the west. So if you're heading up to, say, Salt Lake City, I think you got a much better odds of seeing some rainfall as we move into the weekend. So keep that in mind for heading west along I-70. Further south, seeing here, the San Juans are going to be on the drier end overall. Certainly, if you're over towards, say, Silverton, you might still get some rain or some snow if you're heading down south to see the mountains. But do keep in mind, still drier zone down here. A lot of that is going to be focused up towards our north and further over along our east. Again, I do feel this model is very aggressive overall, so do keep that in mind. It's going to be much more confined, a lot drier than what you're seeing here behind me. Moving a little bit further along, getting towards Monday, this is where I think you're actually going to start to see stuff affect us here in the Grand Valley and towards Montrose. So here's like a little bit more of a national look. What's going on the East Coast? You're still seeing this lines of storms going into the evening. Going to pick up a little bit more as you move over towards Atlanta and Georgia as you get into overnight hours. So I do expect some severe thunderstorm warnings to keep popping up over towards the east. And it's going to kind of stall out as you get over further towards the east. And then like we talked about, high pressure, we talked about it earlier. It's going down towards the south, and that opens up even over towards our northern friends, over towards Montana. It's going to open them up to some more precipitation chances because you just don't have that pushing down of the air. That's really not very good for those storms. And over towards the east, you're getting a little bit more of that precipitation moving over across Kansas and popping up a bit more as you move kind of into the little bit southern portion of Appalachia, the central south portion. We're going to see some more rainfall pop up then as we get in towards Monday. So I want to show you one more thing. I think it's fun to show. The time lapse of the week. This one was actually recorded just last night. I thought it was my favorite that I've seen. So you notice our camera a little bit wobbly if you're paying close attention. That's just because we had some gusts, and you've probably felt them outside yourself on Wednesday, which was yesterday. So you can kind of just watch it roll, those beautiful colors. Very fun to just, it's kind of fun to just see the colors roll on the western slope. It's just 20,000 times faster, of course. This is a time lapse. 20,000 times faster than it was actually recorded. So here's your time lapse. Still ongoing. You see those nice, beautiful colors if you looked over here towards Mount Garfield and the Grand Mesa. Unfortunately, warm days are still going to continue. Those unseasonably warm days, I would say at that, when you talk about the 60s, as we're only getting into the last week of February and early March. And so I think that kind of sets the tone for what we're seeing as we move later on into the month. Fortunately, it does look, again, like we talked about, high pressure going further down towards the south. That's going to open us up for some more moisture. It also keeps some energy. I really can see the chances of some thunderstorms mixed in there too, just because of how warm that we have been. And so moisture, sure, but we're going to have to get cooler if you actually want to start building up some more snowpack. And of course, the closer we get to spring, well, the lower the odds that we see. So here's you had fun with the time lapse. We got to start ending the show. So here is my email if you would like to send me any suggestions for the show, or maybe if you had a cool weather picture that you've taken throughout the week, a nice sunset maybe, go ahead and send it to me. I'd be happy to feature it here on the show. And we will be putting out more Weather Eye as we move to the next few weeks. We're going to try more and more things with this show. We're going to try to smooth it out a little bit. And so I'd be happy to get your feedback. So thank you for watching this episode of Weather Eye. I will be back next week with what I'm hopefully, fingers crossed, is going to be a bit of a cooler forecast. But at least if I'm looking at it right now, I'd say we're probably still in those 60s and seeing a little bit of rain and only snow in the mountains. So I'll see you next time.